Jake should have known something was wrong when his cousin Danny offered him the house for free. "Just need someone to keep an eye on it while I'm overseas," Danny had said, avoiding eye contact. "You know, make sure pipes don't freeze, that kind of thing." The house sat at the end of a dead-end street, surrounded by overgrown hedges that blocked most of the streetlight. Jake had been desperate enough after losing his apartment that he didn't ask why Danny seemed so eager to get rid of the keys. The first night, Jake noticed the shadow in the living room. It stretched across the far wall, cast by nothing he could see. No furniture, no light source that would create that particular shape tall, hunched, with what looked like impossibly long arms reaching toward the ceiling. By the third night, the shadow had fingers. Jake tried everything. He moved every piece of furniture, checked every light, even went outside with a flashlight to see if something was casting the shadow from the street. Nothing. The shadow remained, growing more detailed each night, like a photograph slowly developing in a dark room. On the fifth night, it moved. Jake was watching TV when he caught the motion in his peripheral vision. The shadow's head turned toward him with fluid, unnatural movement. When Jake looked directly at it, the shadow froze, but he could feel something watching him back. He called Danny. The phone rang and rang before going to voicemail. Jake tried again at 2 a.m., then 3 a.m. Finally, at 4:17 a.m., Danny picked up. "What?" Danny's voice was sharp, awake like he'd been expecting the call. "Danny, what the hell is wrong with this house?" Silence stretched across the international connection. "Then, you saw it." "Saw what?" "The shadow." "Danny, what is?" "Don't sleep in the living room. Ever." "And Jake?" Danny's voice dropped to a whisper. "Don't let it see you looking at it after midnight." The line went dead. That night, Jake dragged his mattress into the kitchen and barricaded the doorway with chairs. Through the gap, he could see into the living room where the shadow waited. At 11:47 p.m., it began to move. Slowly, deliberately, it peeled itself from the wall like wet paint sliding down glass. The shadow wasn't flat anymore. It had depth, substance, mass. It moved across the floor with the sound of something heavy being dragged across wood. Jake pressed his hand over his mouth to muffle his breathing as the thing, because it was definitely a thing now, passed by the kitchen doorway. Jake saw its face in profile. Or what should have been a face. Instead, there was a void so complete it seemed to pull light into itself. And extending from where its mouth should be were dozens of thin, needle-like projections that clicked softly as it moved. The shadow thing paused at the kitchen entrance. Jake could hear it breathing, a wet, rattling sound like air being sucked through mud. One of those impossibly long arms reached toward the barricade, fingers stretching and multiplying until there were too many to count. It knew he was there. Jake closed his eyes and counted his heartbeats. 100, 200. When he finally dared to look, dawn was breaking through the kitchen window, and the shadow was gone. He packed his things and left that morning, dropping the keys in Danny's mailbox. But as he drove away, Jake saw something in his rearview mirror that made his blood freeze. The shadow was standing in the upstairs window, and for the first time, Jake could see its face clearly. It was his own face, but wrong mouth opened too wide, filled with those needle teeth, and eyes that were just empty holes leading to somewhere Jake never wanted to go. His phone buzzed. A text from Danny. Thanks for feeding it. It was getting so hungry. Jake never found out what happened to the next person who stayed in the house. He moved 3 states away and never answered Danny's calls again. But sometimes, on nights when the streetlight outside his new apartment cast shadows on his wall, Jake would catch a familiar shape in his peripheral vision, and he would remember that some things, once they've seen you, never forget your face.